Welcome to Your Mental Breakdown, the podcast where you get to follow along with the client in real therapy sessions.
And you'll hear two licensed psychotherapists
That's us.
breaking it down afterwards, so you get a look behind the curtain. In this episode, you get a twofer. First, you'll hear about 6 minutes of my session with Andrew.
Only 6 minutes since Doug ran out of batteries on his recorder.
We'll break that down, and then you'll get part 2, Andrew's full session the following week with his thoughts about going to his brother's bachelor party.
And then we'll break down how to reframe the narrative and apply choice versus obligation.
Stick around. It's a twofer.
Welcome.
I am Doug Friedman,
And I am Meredith Levy.
and this is Your Mental Breakdown.
Hi, Doug.
Hello. How have you
Been
been?
so long.
I know. It's been like 30 seconds since I saw you.
I know.
You asked me about Beckett, so I'll tell you and fill everybody else in.
Yeah, he seemed grumples this morning.
Yeah, so last night or yesterday, he fell into the neighbor's pool. And I don't think he's experienced a pool before.
What?
Yeah, he was, in all fairness, he was playing with their dog, who he's best friends with, and they were running around, and I think he just slipped in. And my neighbor heard it. I didn't even hear it right away.
Can he swim?
I mean, he can doggy paddle,
Okay.
right? I guess. But he didn't know how to get out of the pool because he had slipped into it. He didn't know that there were stairs, right at the side or whatever. So he was trying to climb up on the side, and he didn't know what he was doing. And I kind of ran out there as soon as my neighbor was like, "Oh my God, I think Beckett fell in the pool."
Did your neighbor just say, I think Beckett fell in the pool and just stay in the house?
No.
Okay.
We were sitting outside, hanging out.
Okay.
And the dogs were. His front yard is like a forest. It's amazing.
Nice.
With a pool. And he has heard that sound before because they have raccoons that fall into their pool. He had to like rescue some a few times.
Oh my God.
It's not uncommon for that area.
Sure.
We've had a bear come to our front door.
Yeah, that's happened. That happens in downtown LA.
That's right. So I, pulled him out when he was trying to claw his way out, but he was, clearly soaked because he'd been in the pool, but scared the crap out of him. I think the poor kid was traumatized.
Oh, for sure.
When we got home, he just curled into doggy fetal position, and just passed out.
See, look at how intuitive I am.
Yeah, you knew.
He was super grumpy this morning.
Yeah, that's what it
Barked in
is.
my face. I must have punched him.
Well, that's saying hello. That's how he says hello.
And don't yell at me, Peter. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you wouldn't actually punch him.
I'll just kick him. JK.
Oh, no. Yeah, he's super chill now. But even that barking thing, he's a vocal dog. Every time I come home and he's not already with me, that's the greeting I get. He's barking, he's yelping, he's whining, which is a trip. My last dog was totally silent.
R.I.P. Franklin.
Yeah, my boy. Anyhow, that's my doggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just great. Thanks.
And that's all we're revealing to our audience today. What's going on this week? What did we hear?
Well, so once again, people just love your analogies. Especially the stick one, the driving
stick one?
Yeah.
Right.
Just a lot of people just loved that one.
Interesting.
So they are going to be super excited for the next couple episodes coming up because there are some epic ones.
Yeah.
So just wanted to give you a little kudos for that.
That's right. We get the Star Wars one.
Oh,
soon.
yes, we do.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
So excited.
Yep.
Someone wanted to know, do you ever combine your music into your work?
Interesting. I will answer that 2 ways.
Great.
Once in Icelandic and once in English. One way is no, I don't.
Great.
My music is separate. I used to do it under a different name and keep it entirely separate from this.
Okay.
Some clients would know that I've played music and they'd ask about it, and it's a really tough one. Kind of go, well, you can find it online if you're adept, and maybe you do and maybe you don't. And then I was like, sure, I can share something and we can talk about it if we need to. But for the most part, I'd say high 90s% of the time, no, it's completely separate.
Okay.
The other way I'll answer it is absolutely, but it's not my music that I've written. It's my experience as a songwriter, my experience as somebody creative, my experience working in the business, my experience with other musicians, other bands, other executives.
Right.
That I absolutely pull from all the time.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I get credit?
Yep. Another thing, you talked about starting in the middle and going
either way.
Either way.
Right. Either or either?
I feel like it's both, but that's a great question. Right when you said either and then I said either, I was like, why am I doing that?
You did something I love and trained myself to do.
What?
You said often.
Yeah.
And my dad from, the Boston area would say often a lot. And I grew up saying often, but I liked often. So I trained myself to try to say often as I could.
Ooh.
Right. And I learned how to do it because I just thought it sounded cooler. I mean, it's something that you don't think of in the moment when you're saying it, but right after the fact, you totally hear it.
Good job.
Thank you.
So in terms of starting in the middle,
yep.
People just wanted to know more about it. I think that it was a concept that people hadn't really ever thought of.
Right.
So there was a lot of curiosity about it.
Right. And it to me goes back to the thing that drives you and me crazy about grammar, what they taught us in school, starting where the client's at.
Right.
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 Which grammatically incorrect, but I think clinically very relevant.
Yes.
That idea of start where they are.
Yeah.
And don't end with a preposition.
Yes. Oh my God, coin that.
You said it. You coined it. When we first started talking about that a while ago, and you said never end a sentence with a preposition.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
That idea of starting where they are is to me in the middle. I want a picture of where they want to be. That's like we talked about doing the 5 or 10 years from now, or if this was the last session. So I want to know, going forward, the future, what that looks like. And we'll talk about some stuff in the past because we'll see some patterns or we'll dig around a little bit. But starting in the middle is really just a way to go, well, what's going on right now? What's on your mind right now?
So as opposed to just coming in and being like, when I was 2 years old.
Exactly.
Do you remember in
counting work?
Goonies.
Oh, Goonies. Yeah.
And then was I was in 5th grade.
Oh,
I made these barfing sounds.
When he's tied up and he's have to, yeah.
My favorite.
I love that.
Not
nice
to minimize
reference.
Anybody's trauma when they were 2, but okay. So, and then I think also starting in the middle, not just in therapy, but like for the most part is applicable to life in general, right?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before, the idea of wanting to give everybody a full picture, all the information.
Right.
And there's this pressure on ourselves that we need to give all of that and the whole story. That's too much pressure.
Right. So like when you meet someone, for example, like if you're starting to date someone or whatever, it's like they don't need the whole picture.
Right.
You can just meet them and then sort of move forward and then eventually like move backward a little bit.
Totally. No, our brains will want to know the backward. We'll want to know about, tell me about your other relationships what happened when you were 5 and.
But you don't want to start there because that's just TMI.
Right. And where you want to go, I mean, some people, dating's a different thing. If you're like, no, I want to have kids in 2 years and I want to do this and I want to have a house and I want this and that. Okay. That tells you where you are right now is thinking of where you want to be. But that's not starting in the middle. That's starting out there.
I mean, in case anyone's curious, I do not want to have kids. Just so you know.
Right. There you go.
My niece and nephew are my life.
I was just going to say, but you're an amazing aunt.
Yes. I am the best auntie in the world. So.
Auntie or auntie?
Auntie.
Okay.
Well, it started out as auntie forever. Now my niece, Jordan, is way too cool. She decided that she can't call me auntie anymore, even though her friends still do. And then my nephew, Braden, we were in Africa and all his friends like had these little accents and then they called me auntie. And so now he calls me auntie.
Aw.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep.
Speaking of calling and relatives, so
yeah,
good news and bad news for the next session.
Yeah.
The good news is we had contact from brother.
Yep.
Right? Bad news is the session actually got cut off, which super sucks. Totally my fault, user error. The batteries in my recording thing died while we were recording. I didn't even notice until afterwards. Like, oh, fuck, we got 6 minutes? Shit.
Hate when that happens.
Right? So what we'll do is we'll play you guys the 6 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it was that we did record. So you get to hear that. And then we'll come right back and just sort of break that down and fill in a little piece. And then we'll go from there and go into the session that happened the following week with more to it than just 5 minutes.
Sounds good.
All right. So listen in on Drew talking about getting a call from his brother or text from his brother. And just in case you weren't with us previously, to give a quick recap, Drew, 24-year-old from a small town in the Pacific Northwest, actually from a very small town in Canada, then near Seattle. He's in LA doing some work and is really trying to find his authenticity. And in the middle of this, trying to repair some trauma history with mom, with an attempted suicide of mom when he was a young teenager. And shortly after that, he and brother didn't speak for nearly 10 years. And his brother is now getting married. And you'll hear what happens when his brother texts him and hits him up. And here it is.
My brother hit me up the other day.
Really?
Yeah. He
wow, we're gearing up for that. And I guess
I know.
We'll dive right in.
Here it is.
How was that?
He texted me. He invited me to his bachelor party, which I immediately called my dad. And I was like, yo, Pops, like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't want to go. I don't know him. It's not what I want to do.
Right.
And then his rebuttal was like, you got to support the family. Like, this isn't like necessarily about you. And I'm like, I feel that. Like, I totally understand that. So, and I texted him like, yeah, man, send me the details. And that's all that that was it. So I don't really know.
Well, let's jump right in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about this. Right?
Right.
And, we said we got time before the wedding. Mm-hmm. Bachelor party, that's creeping up.
It's like in 4 weeks.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah.
So that idea of, I don't know him, right?
We're talking about your brother specifically and your experience of that relationship.
Yeah.
You've got some preconceived notions, some subjectivity to it. It's hard to really step outside and see it.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree.
The pictures in Harry Potter, right? Like how they move and all that, right?
Yeah.
It's that snapshot that is still moving, is still active. I might be thinking of it as that was a snapshot, like a Polaroid picture back then, and there's a new Polaroid now. And the one now doesn't look like the one then, so you need to adjust. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like people that you knew back in Canada, right? If they saw you now and sat down with you now, they'd be like, whoa.
Completely different.
Right. Right. Different look, different vibe. Maybe some things at the core are the same.
Right.
And they would probably adjust. Right?
Yeah.
But your parents, even if you change things now, we're like, hey, mom, dad, I don't want any support from you. I'm going to do everything on my own right now.
Right.
They'd be, oh, okay. But they're going to have that Harry Potter snapshot of you that's moving, and they're going to know, well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think of that idea?
I think I've tossed back and forth. I think I'm kind of in between the two. I think I've definitely put myself in the lane of Polaroid and keeping myself in that. And so I think I'm still in the scenario where I am looking at that snapshot from back then.
Right.
And I think going back to our last conversation of like the unknown is scary, I think that's the scary part. Because I think I'm secure with myself, with him, and who I am. I just fear that we're just gonna go right back to it and then I'm gonna be stuck at his bachelor party and I can't go anywhere. And then I'll be stuck and I don't want, like, it's his bachelor party, you know what I mean? And I don't want to I feel like we have a lot of stuff to talk about and that's not going to be the place to talk about it.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm going to have to put on a facade for a couple of days and pretend everything's all right.
Maybe.
Which isn't the worst thing, I don't think.
No, it's not the worst thing.
Yeah.
It's not a great thing.
Right.
Because it's really going to make it difficult to be present and be authentic.
Right.
Right. And there's a way to kind of work through it that involves him and a way that doesn't involve him. Right. And part of that is getting a snapshot of him now, that Polaroid now, going, okay, so I need to adjust how I think of him in this way. But this Polaroid I had from before, I mean, they're so different, right? So how do I bridge that? And that's you finding the bridge yourself. With me, we'll do it, right? The other is kind of going back and going, hey, man, I have this Polaroid and I don't like it, and here's why, and I need to talk about that, right? And that's the part that involves him, because it's kind of bringing some of this stuff out, you know, and talking about it, and hearing what he says and hearing what you say. And that can be very healing and reparative for the relationship. It's not necessary in terms of, can you be present in 4 weeks and just see a new snapshot and go, okay, this is it. Right?
Yeah.
You can do that, but you might come back here and go, all right, Doug, tried it. And like, man, all this stuff started coming up.
Right.
Right.
Right. Well, and like the other thing too is like, I'm barely wanting to go to the wedding. Like I barely want to go to that.
Why?
Because same situation where I'm not going to know anybody. You know, it's going to be a lot of me having to put a face on, I feel like, in that wedding. And I think I'm just the person that if I had no conflicts coming, I'd rather just not. And because I don't have to deal with it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so that I barely want to go to. This I really don't want to go to.
Well, you're talking about putting on a face in order to go.
Yeah.
All right. 2 questions. What is the face that you're putting on? And what purpose is it serving?
The face would be, I guess, doing what he wants to do.
There you have it.
So there you have all 6 minutes.
His brother hit him up the other day.
It took me 20 listens to figure out what that first sentence said.
You got to get the lingo of the kids these days.
Whatever. I'm badass.
You are. You actually know more lingo than I do, which is crazy.
Okay. So many things in these few 6 minutes.
Yeah. That's why we're breaking it down.
He invited him to the bachelor party.
Yep.
I was very angry at his dad for saying that he has to go to support the family.
Right.
And of course I understand.
Sure.
And then we got into the Harry Potter analogy with the moving snapshots.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
So yeah, the Harry Potter thing I love. Also, what really got cut off is I had just thrown that 2 questions at him and he answered the first and you don't hear the second because the battery died. So I'll fill you guys in.
Well, before you do.
Please.
I wrote down what is the face and what purpose does it serve? And I wrote great questions.
Ooh, thank you.
I really did. I love when we as therapists can just like stop and pause and break those things down, because clients throw that stuff out.
Right.
And then we're like, wait.
Right. Right. And it's something I love doing too. It reminds me of, the thing about therapists is we know there's a light bulb over your head, but it's up to you to flip the switch to turn it on. If we just turn it on for you, you don't have that realization yourself.
Right. So we're not telling you, but we're stopping and pausing and asking you questions that'll help you figure it out.
Right.
Right.
Right. That's those aha moments. That light bulb is on. I got it. It makes sense. And that's what we're, I think, trying to drive at with this.
Right.
Right.
So what did he say?
He said, so the first part he kind of nailed, the what is the face? It's me, trying to fit in with them, essentially. And that's something we broke down a little more in the session that got cut off, is what it's like to fit in with others, as opposed to looking at, can they fit in with you, right? So we'll mold and shift and be something other than we are, and not authentic and not who we are, because we just want to be accepted, which is a very human thing, right? The second thing, what purpose does it serve? At first, he was talking about how it would, in a sense, the thing that made you angry about dad, it would preserve the family and be the thing that, is the right thing or effective for his family and for keeping that together.
Right.
And then he kind of pulled it out to, no, you know what? It's really more about my comfort. I mean, the purpose it would serve, like I would put that face on in order to belong and be comfortable with all of them. And then I'd come home and it'd be like, that's not who I wanted to be.
Right.
That really wasn't comfortable.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. Cool the way he kind of parsed that out. And what's really cool is we can jump forward a week, kind of spinning a positive on me not realizing the battery died. Right.
Oh, show.
But what happens in that week is he has the conversation with his dad.
Right.
So now we'll step out for a little while, let you listen to the session, because we do dig into a lot more about the bachelor party, about going, about his comfort and those ideas. And it comes out in how he talked to his dad and what he's realizing in our session.
Right. Okay. So you guys go listen to that and we'll be back.
We'll be right here on the couch.
Okay.
How fast paced does it feel right now? Because you seem like, I mean, you like the always going, the 24/7 kind of thing, but it's also nice to take those moments. And I can see your face, like that longing for that. Let me just chill on the beach and relax.
Yeah.
How's your pace been?
Yeah, I think it's fast but slow right now. Day to day, super slow, but within that day to day, it's really fast. So like work wise, like things are moving, things are happening. It's like a weird balance of both.
Yeah.
But no, I need to relax. I need to rest. I need to.
Is there uneasiness in that balance that you're describing? Like it sounds a lot less like it's that middle road and like it's a lot of this or a lot of that. Like it's one or the other.
Yeah, and I definitely think there's an uneasy feeling there. Am I moving forward? Am I moving backwards? Where am I at? I don't really have like a mile marker. I have no mile markers right now, so I'm just kind of on autopilot.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling because some people call it untethered. Yeah. Meaning like if you're doing a spacewalk, like if you were up on the shuttle and like you had to go repair something on the wing or something. Right. I don't know how that works. Yeah. You go out there and you're tethered. You got that big cord holding you and you know that you're grounded, you're okay. Right. But if that cord gets cut, you've seen enough of those movies. Yeah. You're just kind of floating in space and like free floating. And that's so
scary.
So scary.
So scary.
Right.
Yeah. And I to a certain degree think I'm floating. But I'm still working. So it's like that weird. Yeah,
you just had a deep pensive look on your face for a second.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said I'm still working because like I am. I still have my job. I'm still doing what I need to do. But it's just like I think that's the unknown part. It's like an unsecured thing. It's like I have my job, but I don't know if I'll have it tomorrow.
Right.
Which I don't think is a bad thing.
Not necessarily, because there's some other knowing that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? Is that, well, I want to do my own thing anyway. So underlying, I know I'm going to be okay. And safety net of parents, right. I'm not going to starve.
Right.
I don't like that because I want my own independence.
Absolutely.
But if I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Now I can breathe a little
and bit. I haven't done that. I think I'm so wrapped up in what could happen, what's going to happen, tell me what's happening.
Yeah.
That I haven't really even taken a second to be like, yeah, I'm going to be all right. Like, I am going to be all right. And I need to take that just relaxation where I decompress and not really worry about it.
Yeah.
Because I think I do too much, especially with everything else that's going on.
Right.
Like it's just like a wild time in my life right now.
Yeah. And I want to dig into this a little bit because that idea and what you're experiencing, we can apply it to just about everything in your life because there's going to be more wild times. There have certainly been wild times, and that not feeling okay, but knowing I'm going to be okay, but not making that connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where we can strengthen something. And there might be intellectually for you a sense that I know I'm okay. Maybe some of that needs proving. Like, well, I'm okay when I'm busy, when I'm working, when I'm doing this.
Right.
But at the core, I think you're going to be okay, but I don't know that you're connected to that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think even when I am really busy, that's when my mind doesn't have a second to think about it.
Right.
So I think that's why when I'm busy, I'm in my groove, and that's where I see the most progression. But when I'm slow and I'm like caught up in my thoughts, that's when it gets bad. Like I feel like no matter what I do, like this way I'm regretting not getting stuff done. Right. But this way I'm regretting not relaxing.
Yep. Yeah. And that's that. It's hard to find balance that way. It's the expression damned if you do, damned if you don't, in a sense. Like, well, I can't win. Yeah. Okay. Well, if it's not about winning, if it's about making conscious choices and about going, hey, you know what? There's a lot of stuff I can do, not I should do, because that's going to imply a failure if you don't.
Yeah.
Right? I should be chilling out, but I did this, this, and this. Yeah. So it doesn't matter how productive you are, you're going to carry some sense of failure with you because you didn't do the thing that you should do.
Yeah.
But if you go, I can chill out, I'd like to get some stuff done first and then chill out. It's subtle.
Yeah.
But it's what you're telling yourself and what you're kind of retraining your brain to think.
Yeah.
So it's giving you more choice and more of a middle ground, more of like, yeah, let me kind of find where this feels okay for me.
Yeah. Well, and even just hearing that, I feel more in control, because to your point, that was my thing. I had to go do something instead of sitting back and making a choice to do something.
Yeah.
I feel like it was almost an autopilot, like this is what we're doing. But realizing that I have the choice is very relaxing.
Yeah, it's funny just watching you, your face shifted.
Yeah.
As you were talking about, I had to do this, I had to do that. I talk about it in the sense of choice versus obligation. When something feels like an obligation, it sucks, you don't want to do it. Right. That goes back to being a kid, an infant, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to, right?
Yeah.
But if there's a choice, if you have autonomy, it feels good and you feel a sense of empowerment most of the time.
Right.
Sometimes having too much choice is just like floating in the ether, like, well, I'm overwhelmed. There's too much. Which way do I go? I don't know which way. Yeah. And a lot of that is based on I don't want to make a mistake, or I don't want to get this wrong, or I don't want to disappoint somebody, that kind of stuff. But if we just bring it back to that idea of choice versus obligation, having true choice means you can just walk that way. You can go that way and discover something for yourself all on your own. And that has to be okay. So you have this obligation. That's going to feel different.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like you're stuck.
Yeah.
Because we create that sense of obligation for ourselves, that I have to do this, that failure if we don't, even failure if I think other than doing it.
Right. Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah. Why?
I think obligation is pressure and failure comes up. I feel like if I'm obligated to do something, my strict feeling on it is when I'm obligated to do stuff, that's when I'm out. I just don't want to do it. Right. There's definitely scenarios where I have to do it. I have to, there's no choice. But I find when I choose to do stuff and I'm 100% there for my being, not for anybody else's,
right?
That's when I'm super successful. And that's when I'm my best for work. That's when I'm best in relationships. That's when I'm the best at who I am, because I want to. I put effort into it and try. Our very first conversation, I'm either in or I'm out.
Right.
And so when I choose to be in, like I'm in.
Yeah.
When I'm obligated, that's kind of the other half. Where I'm out.
Yeah. My head is spinning with examples for you in your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pick one because it's the one that we scratched a little at last week.
Yeah.
And it's coming up. Yeah. And that's brother.
Right.
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 I would guess that talking to him now and going to his bachelor party feels like
an obligation.
Yeah. Right. 100% obligation right now. Yeah. That's a pretty high fucking percentage, man. It doesn't get higher. Right. People are like, oh, 110%. There's no such thing. You're 100%. Right.
Yeah.
100% obligation right now. Let's think about that and unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you obligated to go to his bachelor party?
I feel like yes, but I also have the choice. It's one of those weird, like, I have the feeling of obligation of like, oh, this is what you should do.
Right.
But I know if I make the choice not to, like, people, like, my parents are still going to love me. Like, I'm still going to go to the wedding. There's repercussion, but it's not like end all.
sounds like there is some choice, but you're leaning towards going without really wanting yet to go.
Right.
Why are you leaning towards going?
I think it gets back to I've never really had a family. And so when I find family like situations like this, like I don't want to not go and then 10, 15 years down the road look back on it and be like, I should have gone. I think the regret is my pushing factor of like actually wanting to go.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't want to go see him. I want to go and hang out. You know, I want to go because I can foresee myself 15 years down the road being like, should have gone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because you should twice there. Should have gone, right?
Yeah.
So it's I want to make the choice now,
right.
But it's still in that vein of obligation. Should.
Yeah.
I should go.
Yeah.
And let's pick that apart. I should go. You said it a couple times because it's family.
Right.
And we might be a family again, you know, still are, but we might feel like a family again.
Yeah.
So maybe we could say that it's important to me to be there for family.
Right.
Does that
definitely
sound like a good statement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Say that in your words for what's true for you.
I look forward to the day when my family unit's a unit again. And I think there's going to be steps that are necessary to get there.
Right.
And I see this as one of them. Again, while it's not my first choice of how this problem, it's not a solution for my problem.
Right.
But I do think getting on the path, this is part of it.
Yeah.
And for me, I think new unknown is really scary. And like, that's another reason I don't want to go.
What's that?
I mean, I haven't seen the dude in 10 years, you know, so I have no idea what this even, like, I don't know if I'm staying at a hotel. I don't know if I would stay at a house. I don't know what the activities are. You know, there's so much that I don't know.
Right.
Without even knowing who he is.
Right.
That is just like,
yeah. And that there's that unknown again.
Yeah.
Right. I'm hearing a strong value for you, which is I do want that family unit and I want to take the right steps to get there.
Yeah.
But the right steps is you define them.
Yeah.
And the right steps for your definition, for your value is I will be there for his wedding. I will be there for his bachelor party because those are pivotal moments in someone's life and I want to be there. I'm choosing to be there for him.
Yeah.
Because of what I value for family. Right?
Yeah.
Is that fair? Does that sound right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. How much of an obligation does it sound like right now with that in mind? None. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We went from 100% to none. I was expecting you might say 50, but shit, my work is done, dude. End of session. Let's go. Right. But that's, I think thinking of it that way is something that we don't do very consciously.
Right.
In fact, unconsciously, I should go. I have to go. I need to go. We're just drilling obligation into our heads. Yeah. So naturally, a part of us is resisting that. Like you said, any obligation, I resist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But as we pick it apart, we go, wait, no, I value family. I value that family unit that I want to have 10 years down the line. I value doing these things that I think are important for family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're absolutely choosing what's important to you. There is in that a lot of unknown and it's weird. And this is just one piece along that path. Believe it or not, you're already taking and have taken, as I've seen, huge steps on that path, which is you're talking to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're working on this.
We're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're already honoring your own values and your own choices. Right?
Yeah.
You believe that?
Yeah, definitely.
You sure I'm not just full of shit?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not this hour, but maybe. Yeah. Exactly. It's something that unknown piece is still the scary, uncomfortable piece. That's still triggering for you.
The funny thing is he texted me. Well, I texted him because I didn't initially text him back when he invited me.
Oh, right.
You know,
you called dad.
I waited it out a little bit, waited to talk to you about it. And then I was like, yeah, some of the details, that kind of thing. And he ended up texting me back this morning. And like, long story short, he ended it with, but don't feel like you need to go. And so I was like, cool, there's my out. I'm done, you know? And so like, and then I realized like, okay, I have an out. What do I want to do?
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. He released me from my obligation, but now what's my choice?
Yeah.
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 Which is a better feeling. I don't feel obligated on his behalf. I don't feel as obligated on my behalf, other than the regret part.
Right.
The direct obligation is straight from my parents.
And
I think that's the hard part.
That idea that they're not giving you an out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, we can go with secret of life right here. No one's ever going to give you an out, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
The out comes from you. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately, it's being comfortable enough with yourself to be able to say what feels true at the time.
Yeah. And I think I said something remotely around that. Granted, my memory might not be spot on. I think I phrased it like, Dad, I'll go if you go. And he was like, well, I haven't got the invite yet.
Why did you say that? What was going on in your head for that one?
Well, that was my safety net, you know, of like, I know my dad. My dad's my boy. Like, me and him are the same person. Like, he's one of my, like, not just being my dad, he's also one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And so, like, knowing that he was going to go, I would have that safety of like, okay, I can go hang out with him all weekend.
So, again, I'm going to play interpreter a little bit.
Yeah.
And what I hear is, hey, Dad, if you go, I would feel a lot more comfortable because I would know you. And I don't really know my brother or any of his friends. And that makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hear from you.
Yeah.
What does that sound like hearing that from me?
I want to say childish, but I don't. If I knew my dad was going to be there, then maybe that would lead to a more comfortable situation.
That can become a different conversation with your dad, or believe it or not, your brother.
Yeah.
Which is, I have a hard time in social situations when I'm not comfortable. And what makes me comfortable is knowing the person or knowing the environment, something. And this is an environment I don't know with people I don't know. So I feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's a level of like, oh, here's what it is versus I need an out.
Yeah.
Or, no, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
That's why that feels childish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So thinking about it, opening it in the way that we're talking about now,
mm-hmm.
where it's very honest. I mean, you're saying very vulnerably too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable in situations where I don't know people. And I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I knew my brother. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I knew his friends or the environment or you.
I don't think I would have any problem saying that to my dad by any means, because I think we've had certain conversations along that line before. And
mm-hmm.
now talking to my brother, I don't even know if I could.
Well, we don't know your brother.
Right.
You know, I mean,
right.
I'm saying this for impact. You barely know him better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
true.
Again, that's for impact, but it's not
true.
That far off, right?
Yeah.
So there's something there, but this idea that we're talking about with your dad, being able to say this to your dad, what we often do when we say things like that is we're looking for something to make it better right now.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's sometimes at the heart of separation anxiety. It's only better when the thing I'm separated from is there again and I'm reconnected.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're not connected to ourselves. Mm. Part of what we're trying to open up here is being vulnerable and naming something is a way to open myself and allow myself to be connected to something. Mm-hmm. It's not quite getting that quick solution, getting that quick fix. Yeah. It's a longer road because we're admitting that we're uncomfortable with something and we're just letting that float for a second.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe like not even up until now, but like all of my life, I've always been that quick fix. Like, okay, let me get what I need, move on. I've never taken that long route, mm-hmm. you know? So like that's definitely something new. I think having that conversation with my dad where he more so understands where I'm coming from would give him a better insight as to like why I don't want to go. I think for right now, he sees it from the outside looking in, and all he sees is that me and my brother don't get along.
Right.
And that's not a reason for me not to be there.
Right.
Whereas if I say, hey, this is why I'm uncomfortable going.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay, I get it now. And would allow me to connect with him on that level.
Yes.
But also let me have a new point in my life where I can drop a marker and be like, okay, I did venture out and have that conversation.
Yes.
I can see that.
Yes.
I can do it again.
Absolutely. Beautiful. I mean, what we're talking about is creating new frames of reference for yourself, for your brain to go, oh, these are the markers. These are the mile markers. Yeah. So I can do it. I can do it this way. Mm-hmm. And I said, we all see that avoidance, and that's a way for you to stay comfortable. Mm-hmm. I would argue it's a way for you to stay uncomfortable and convince yourself that it's comfortable. It's only comfortable because it's familiar, right? But there's something different that can happen. If we move towards that thing that we're so afraid of, if we move towards that emotion, that vulnerability, then it's not that somebody's going to make it better, give you a fix, but it's what you were just describing. It's, I can meet you there and I can be with you. I can understand that. And I can comfort you in that. Right? And then the more we get that comfort, the less scary it is, the more soothing it is. Yeah. And comfort becomes comfortable. Right? Yeah. That's the road that we take. Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I thought of with that is like, I want that to be my normal. Where it's like, the normal is meet me there versus the let me get my quick fix and keep going. Yeah. Because I think that is I've normalized that.
Yes. Well said.
And I think that's one of my biggest downfalls because while I am vulnerable and I think I do a pretty good job of opening it up to people, I do a really bad job of being in that comfortable state. Yeah. You know, it's like I either get like a high from it where it's like, okay, like cool, we're good. Right. Let's get this going again. Right. Or the opposite where I don't get what I need, and then all of a sudden I'm in a really, really bad spot.
Not okay.
I'm not okay. Right. You know, so it's finding that common ground again. Yeah. Of that median where it's like, okay, I will be okay. Here's how I feel. This is what I'm doing, and this is why I feel about it. And just having that conversation, I think, is the best first step I could take. Absolutely. But that's how I can start that conversation now. Yes. And that's, I think, what I've been struggling for the longest time. I just didn't know how to start. Yep. And the start is just being honest.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, again, that's like, I think one of the first things we said to each other. Yeah. Where do I start? Yeah. Right. We even said it, you're right, a couple of weeks ago. Start in the middle. We can work. Yeah. It's as you're just talking and being you, it doesn't matter what point you started at. If you're being yourself, then it's sort of like the starting point is you being honest. Right. And I'll take it a step further and go, it's you being vulnerable, or at least willing to be vulnerable. Where, yeah, that doesn't hurt me. I'm not afraid of that. It's exposing myself. Yeah. And I'm not going to be vulnerable everywhere I go all the time. Right. But knowing I have that capacity and I don't have to get a quick fix or hide something or have an out. You know, it takes some mile markers. It takes some experience. It takes learning things differently. Yeah. Because you haven't experienced that being okay. Right. Right? Yeah. And as you and I move through some of the things that you've gone through in life and that come up in your life now, we're going to be creating new frames of reference. Right. And the skills that we're learning and the way that we're actually able to converse now and the way that you're reshaping your brain is going to make it easier to talk about some of those things when they come up.
And I think it's more in like the consistency state that I want to be in. Where it's like, I like bigger picture here. I think that cause I want to have that conversation with my dad. Like now I'm excited to have that conversation. Yeah. And I think once that happens, it'll be a snowball effect where he'll start understanding where I'm coming from. And then he'll help me with all of that. You know, which is comfortable to me. That's very relaxing. That's very safe to me. Yeah. Of knowing, like, I know he has my back, but I never had that pinpoint where it was like, yeah, he had my back right there. Right. But at least I won't have the feeling of like I let them down in this scenario. Yeah. Because then they'll have a better understanding of where I'm coming from instead of just like, I don't want to go. Right. Because so far, I think that's all he sees from me.
Yeah. I don't want to go, or I have an out. Here it is. I'm taking the out. Right.
Right.
And that's not how I want to be seen by him. Like you said, that's all he sees from me. And that's all he's going to see unless we show more.
Right.
Which, I mean, I will give you a lot of credit for even thinking about it, talking about it, because it takes a lot of vulnerability and that willingness to be vulnerable, which is incredibly courageous and incredibly strong. People think vulnerability is synonymous with weakness. It's not.
Right.
It's probably more synonymous with courage and strength, but we don't think of it that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're I think starting to feel it and go like, wait, that feels more authentic. That's how I want to be.
Yeah.
And it is scary at first because we're not used to it. Anything that's new and different is going to feel uncomfortable. That unknown, that's scary, right? I love your willingness to think about it this way and your motivation to now talk to Dad.
Yeah, because I feel like I almost felt less comfortable when he said you don't have to come, because then it was almost like a formality.
Right.
You know, once I said I'm in, like, cool, like, to the info, that's when he said, don't feel like you need to come.
Right.
Not on the initial, hey, here's what's happening, don't feel like you need to come.
Right.
And so, like to that point, I almost feel like he wants an out now.
Right. And here's where I'll stop you, because we will do incredible mind reading here.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to my 100%. We don't know what's on his mind. Right.
Yeah.
So the only real way to figure that out is to ask, which is scary. And we often don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of it, what if he's just as nervous or more so than you are?
Right. Right. Yeah. I bet he is.
Neither one of us knows what the other is thinking.
Right.
Right? And that's, to me, a perfect opportunity to go, hey man, what are you thinking? Yeah. Or hey man, here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's something we kind of talked about before, like, hey man, here's me. Right? And I think there's potentially a conversation you can have the one with Dad first, right? Kind of grow that, see that here's a frame of reference for this, but stay open to, I can have a conversation with my brother that just goes, you know, hey, I'd love to be there. I'm nervous because I don't really know you or know what it's going to be like. And I don't do well in new situations. Yeah, I really want to. And I think it'll, maybe be a step along the way to kind of having a relationship again. If we're going to stay family, we can't undo that. And I'd like that. That's hugely vulnerable. I'm not, like I said, you don't have to go out and have that conversation with him, but I'm just opening that brain space because it's what I'm hearing from you. It's what I'm hearing you want.
Right.
I wouldn't be saying this stuff to you if your motivation was different.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I'm almost your voice in a sense.
Yeah.
Saying this because I've heard you say it to me.
Yeah.
Right? And I see you smiling. What's going on over there?
You're right. I think it is what I want, and I think my difficulty is knowing how to get what I want at this point. And I think the different frames of reference where I can change my perspective is exactly what I need.
Yeah.
It's not like, I can do whatever I want. At the end of the day, I can do whatever I want.
Absolutely.
But what I want. I just need to hear it back. So it's not just a free-floating idea. It's real at that point once I hear it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a huge amount of comfortability when I hear it back.
Yeah.
Because it's reassuring. It's not, because like right now it's like a what if? What if I do this?
Right.
What if this happens?
The unknowns.
Whereas like now it's like, okay, if this does happen, this is what could happen.
Yeah.
It's more of a positive.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like what if I get there and I hate everybody and it's just all bad? It's like, what if I get there and
what if? Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So I think the hearing it back makes more sense for me.
Yeah.
And I think you're saying everything I'm saying, just in the different wording. It makes sense.
Yeah. And look, you just hit kind of one of the big cruxes of what therapy can be, right? Which is there's all this unknown and it's so uncomfortable and I don't know, I can't figure it out. I can't do. The thing that we're going to know is you. Mm-hmm. You will become the constant in your own life.
Yeah.
Everything else, all these events that come and go, those are the variables. Mm-hmm. Once we know you, you're good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
it's absolutely more authentic because it's going to be more you, not you piled on with all that Vader voice and all that like dark side shit that you've, that you've just had to gut through.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I think that in itself is a huge step for me because, like, I mean, a couple weeks prior to this, you asked me if I want to talk to my brother ever. I'd be like, no.
Right.
So even having that perception of like, I could call him.
Exactly.
It's completely different.
A little while ago, I said, how much of an obligation does it feel like? You said 100%.
Yeah.
A little while after that, I said, how much? You said none.
Yeah.
How much does it feel like choice versus obligation for you now?
I feel like it's 100% choice. 100% choice. Because I think the big three things are, one, I have the choice of if I even want to go. And knowing if I don't go, it's not that, like, he's still going to have his bachelor party.
Sure.
So like that's okay. Two, I think it's more my choice now because I can go have that conversation with my dad and not change his perspective, but give him more insight as to how I'm feeling. And three, I think it's my choice because it's like, I know I want to start that path versus I'm not obligated. The way he's making me go talk to my brother, say I want to.
Yeah.
So like you put those three things together, and I think that's 100% choice.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
That's cool, man. Yeah, absolutely. Because it feels lighter.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, several weeks ago, we had no idea when, if ever, you were going to talk to your brother. It was like, I guess I'll go to the wedding because I have to.
Right.
And that, would have been 100% obligation.
Yeah.
And no other thought in our head about it.
Right.
Now it sounds so different.
Yeah.
Right. And all the bachelor party did was accelerate the work that we were going to do. I said to you many weeks ago, like, oh yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll get to your brother. Don't worry. We'll deal with the wedding. We got plenty of time. Guess what? No time. Boom. Right. Yeah. That's fine. We did it. Mm-hmm. We're not done.
Right.
You still have to do the work of creating the reference points.
Right.
We're just creating that space in your head where it can happen now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love it.
Me too.
Absolutely love it.
A little confused because I don't remember where it broke off and where it didn't.
There wasn't much in the first phone call. I mean, the very first thing was Drew getting a text from his brother,
right,
inviting him to the bachelor party. Then him talking to dad about it. Then he and I talked about what makes you more comfortable, what makes you feel uncomfortable, how to think, right? And then he talked to dad more extensively about it.
Okay, so you guys at some point you talked about, which I loved, rephrasing and reframing the way you look at things. Oh, I loved the spacewalk and the tethered. That is like something I might use. I'm going to use all of them.
Do, please.
And if you have to go do something as opposed to having the choice.
Right.
And when you talked about choice versus obligation, immediately Drew was like, oh.
Right.
It all makes sense. And you talked saying about that it's not about winning, it's about making conscious choices. And the whole conversation when you talked about, okay, so right now the obligation to go to the bachelor party was at 100%, and then it ended up at 0. And you're like, well, we're done here.
Right.
And I think even he was like, holy fuck, how did that happen?
Right.
So even for me, the way you phrased choice versus obligation, like in my mind, of course, I know that exists, but the way you phrased it so succinctly and so, it was just lovely, Doug.
Thank you, Meredith.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I remember reading a book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. Sorry, spoilers. He's like got the happily ever after. He's standing on the top of a hill looking down at his house where he's got a wife and a baby. And he feels an obligation to go back down to the house and be the good husband and father. And then he realizes that true choice is knowing he could walk away and it would be okay and he would be okay. And that would be okay to do. Even though we might pass judgment on that and go, no, you can't do that. You got a wife and a kid. What are you thinking? And I think there's a gap because I think there's a second book called The Journey of the Peaceful Warrior or something that fills in the gap of what happened in that time because he does walk away. if I remember correctly. It's possible I'm wrong.
Doesn't matter. Go with it.
The idea that they were driving home in the book is this choice versus obligation. If you just go back down the hill to the house because you have to,
right,
that obligation carries this weight, this negativity to it, this frame that, you're stuck, right? Which is what Drew is expressing. I don't want to go because I'll feel stuck.
Right.
When you frame it and reframe it as a choice, you could go, and I even said to him, you could go the other way. You could go that way.
Right.
And I was probably pointing in session, which you can't see on a podcast at all, right?
Yes, you are.
You can go that way. I'm even pointing to you right now.
Yeah, indeed.
Right. And that's the freedom of choice. And when you recognize the freedom of choice, then you might actually choose to do the thing that you felt obligated to do in the beginning. But having that freedom and having that sense of choice, it's just so much more liberating and empowering.
Yes. And again, and as you're saying that, I'm just wondering, is this a universal truth? Meaning, do you think there are such things as obligations? So what if the mom hadn't been there with the peaceful warrior? What
Right.
if it had just been the baby?
Is that an obligation to go there?
Yeah.
I would say no. I would say if we're going to stick to the letter of it, and I'm just throwing this out there and spewing a little bit
Spew away.
here. That's right. It's still a choice. You would make the choice based on your own morality or integrity.
Okay, sure.
Right? When it's an obligation that I have to do this, it just feels differently. To say something is a choice or an obligation is a matter of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So shifting our perspective is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
If we're framing it as I'm obligated to do that, then you're going to have some resentment. Possibly. You might not.
Yeah. And I always tell when I work with kids, whether they're young kids or however old, I always tell them, look, your parents have a handful of things that they are required to do for you.
Right.
Obligations, whatever, right?
Sure.
Roof over your head, clothes, food, and
food, clothes, shelter.
Right. And that's it.
Yep.
So, throw some love in there. That would be nice. But
not an obligated requirement that you have to provide.
Right. Exactly. And, obviously we know none of those things happen for many children.
True.
But I do, in my mind, I think when you decide to have kids, like those are some fucking obligations. And sure, you can resent your kids. Many do.
Sure.
Don't have them then. But you're right. I guess it can also, it's perspective.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's with great power comes great responsibility line, right?
Right.
So if you're going to wield that power of having kids, then there's responsibility that comes with it. You have a choice to fulfill that responsibility. You don't necessarily have an obligation.
Sure. Right.
You might think you do.
Right.
You're not obligated to change poopy diapers. Right?
And again, we already know I'm not having kids because poopy diapers sound yucky.
Right. If it's an obligation to change it, then you might resent doing it. You might, build that or harbor that or just feel like you're stuck. If you choose it, even if you're choosing it because it's the responsible thing to do.
Right.
I think that you're doing it for your integrity or for what you value. And that just feels different.
Yeah. And so I guess also like any word, it depends on what it means to us.
Exactly. Yeah. I like that.
So that's important. I think a lot of times to look at also. For him, though, it was sort of black and white in terms of his concept of like, holy shit, this makes such a difference.
Right.
And when you guys talked about it, he was like, oh, no brainer.
Right.
Like I all of a sudden it feels so much lighter. I can actually decide whether to go or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, and when you're in the midst of thinking of something like that, you don't necessarily have the objectivity to step out and see it that way.
Totally.
Which is, a function of what therapy can be is that helping you look at that with some perspective.
Right.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. And that's even that 100%, like he said that, like,
oh my God,
the scaling.
When you guys were talking about that and you said, there's no 110%. In my mind, I was like, oh, fuck yeah, there is. There is 1,000,000% because I am the most hyperbolic human being ever. The most 1,000,000,000%.
That's true. Yep.
There is much more than 100%, Doc.
Well, it's funny because my mathematical brain thinks about that. And like, is there 110%? Of course.
Right.
110% of 100 is 110, right?
Totally.
So there is, but that idea for me is like, it's pregnant or not. It's one or the other. You know?
It sure is.
There are some things that are binary.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about that black or white thing, it's funny because I see him coming out of that black or white thinking.
Right.
And it's sort of, you know, the black, white, plaid, like just noticing it and seeing it shifts him away from that binary place and shifts him onto the spectrum, which I talk about a lot.
Which is great.
Just moving along the spectrum. That's fine.
And there are some things that are either fucking black or white.
True. Like, you know, colors. There's black and there's white.
There sure is.
And graphic designers would go, yeah, but there's quite a number of shades of black and white.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he talked about not wanting to go to the bachelor party and also feeling like he would regret it in like 10 years from now, which I was just thinking to myself, dude, I feel like you might not regret not going to the bachelor party. Like in my mind, just like I know it's the much more conceptual.
Right.
It's not the actual event necessarily, but because he doesn't want something down the line, like what if he regrets it and once they become like a family unit?
Well, I heard that as there's something that he's valuing, which is that family unit and preserving that, and something that he's resisting. And the resistance is why you got mad at dad. Right. Right. Is that obligation, is that no, you need to go. And that I even said, it's like that childish or infantile thing, like, tell me I have to. No, I don't want to. Yep. Right. And that to me was what I was picking up in the room. That's sort of an intuitive feel that I got from him. Also, something that we've talked about in terms of him wanting to repair with brother and work on that and look at, I want to have a relationship with him. I knew that was one of his values that he was holding. With his brother? Yeah. Yeah. You pointed out how he went from, in the beginning, not wanting to talk to his brother, hell no, not happening, to like, meh, okay. Yeah. And I think part of the function of that was him just softening that where the resistance was. The resistance was, I have to. Right. You know, or one of your favorites, I should. Right. He also said something I liked in here, which was towards the end, he said, hearing it back is really helpful. Like I reframed something and we do that a lot as therapists. We will reframe something and say it back to the client. It's sort of what you hinted at, Meredith, early on, like him wanting organization of thoughts, right? And a lot of times what therapy can do is just provide you a place to help you organize your thoughts and to hear it back. Right. And have it, you know, now make sense to you because you're hearing someone else say what you've already said. 100%. Right? Yeah, I find that all the time. 110%. 1 million. I find that for myself sometimes, you know, when I'm talking to someone else, whether it's therapy or just conversation, but I hear it back. With my clients all the time, they're like, oh, right. Whether it's their words exactly, right? Or just me framing it or rephrasing it. Right. It's just literally hearing it back that all of a sudden can click for them. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. I like that. Anything else about the body of the session? When you talked about his, that if his dad goes to the party, he'll feel more comfortable. Right. And I think you said something like comfort becomes comfortable. Right. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I think we even talked about this once. It might have been on here. Might have just been us chatting because we do chat outside of this. We do a lot. And that idea of when somebody is having a feeling, right? And then the other person, or they look to another person to get something that feels comfortable, it puts pressure on the other person to fix or to make it better. Right. And sometimes it's not about fixing or making better. It's just about allowing that person to be in whatever it is that they're feeling. Right. And that's providing comfort. And then the comfort, which is comforting, becomes more comfortable. Right. So we actually wind up getting to a place of comfortable by virtue of sharing being uncomfortable. Exactly. So for the next session, I think we can sort of preview that he's going to talk to dad a little more based on what, you know, the conversation he and I just had was. And we will talk a little bit about some of the triggers that he was noticing, you know, with interactions with him and his girlfriend. Lots of good stuff coming up. That's right. Ooh, and the Star Wars reference. Oh my God. That analogy comes up in the next one. You guys just wait. Just wait, just listen. Go to yourmentalbreakdown.com and tell us almost everything.
Ask us questions, email us.
We love hearing from you guys. Come back next week.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.